everybody. Welcome to Vikings Report Rewind. As always, I'm your humble host, Ted. As always, I've got my partners in crime with me, the co-host for Vikings Report with Drew and Ted, Drew Bunning, and right below, our partner in crime for Vikings Report Rewind, the founder, lead blocker, and numero uno honcho at the Vikings SB Nation website, the Daily Norseman, Chris Gates. Vikings win 19-13 in Chicago. The Vikings moved to 2-4. Normally, we would be happy about a Vikings win, but there's trouble right here in River City, boys. There's some stuff about this game that look, they won, and I'd rather win ugly than lose. If the Vikings lost, the Bears has been like disastrous in a lot of different ways. But this, I don't know. Drew, you and I talked about this throughout the game. What were some of your takeaways? I'm not a big fan of how this game worked out.
Sure, I like the win, but if you're not playing the Bears today, you're probably lost. If it wasn't for Hicks, you probably lose 13-12. The Vikings did find a way to win, but I think if there's a word worse than ugly or win than that, they cannot put teams away. I said it every week. I'm going to stop saying it because nobody thinks I'm true about it. Kevin O'Connell is a terrible play caller, terrible game planner. In the second half, he just does everything to keep the other team in the game. He is soft. He has no creativity. He plays scared. Look at that. The 3-play down thing down by our own goal line. It's the Vikings aren't going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, very, very Mike Zimmerish in
Terrible.
how
Just
Vikings are unable to yet put another team away, Chris.
Of all the Bears-Vikings games we have ever seen, that was certainly one of them. I mean, that was God almighty. I mean, I don't know what this team has to do. I mean, the defense shows up and just stomps on a really bad offense in Chicago for most of the game today. The Bears go to the backup quarterback and immediately start moving the ball and scoring points, which is like a tradition for Bears-Vikings games that we've seen over the years. But, they did win. I don't think it's a win you can be particularly jazzed up about. I mean, like you said, I'd rather win football games than lose football games. But, damn, it was just that was about the ugliest possible win you could have pulled out against a team that's really. I know they were both 1-4 going into this game, but the Bears aren't good. The Vikings should have won this game relatively handily, and they didn't.
When you're up 19-6 and you've knocked the starting quarterback out of the game and you get a big fumble, scoop, and score to go up 19-6 as soon as that backup quarterback comes in, that should be the tipping point where you deliver the knockout punch and end this game. And the Vikings did just the opposite, Drew.
Mm-hmm.
It's what they've always done. It's what they've always done, especially this season. They were winning all these games last year, but they have no killer instinct from the coaching standpoint or the quarterback standpoint. I think Cousins is checking down a lot of passes, but this offense is awful. Iowa has a better, more creative offense. I don't get this. If you turn on this game, this is why it's all convoluted every week. And then O'Connell says we need to play better at the press conference. If you turn that game on halfway through the fourth quarter, the Bears drive the field and get a touchdown, Chris. And then they drive the field again, and they're on their way to win the game. And you look at that and go, well, the Vikings defense is letting them down today. It's not the defense. It's the offense.
Absolutely not.
It's terrible. You got 13-6. You had 3 chances to put that game away, and you can't even run time off the clock. You got a horrible screen. Kevin O'Connell is a terrible play caller, and I'm going to keep saying it. People in the chat might rip me. He's terrible, and I've watched football for 50 years. I know what's wrong with this team. I do.
Unless my counting was off, the Vikings had 2 first downs in the entirety of the second half. And one of them was that run by Madison while they were under 2 minutes to go. Beyond that, the entire second half, I believe the Vikings only generated 1 first down on offense. I would have to go back and look through the plays, but I think they only had 1 first down in the second half until after the 2-minute warning. And they still won, which is ridiculous.
Ted, I don't want to hear about JJ not being out there as the reason the offense is sluggish. They do this every week.
No, and you and I talked about this a little bit. If you guys don't know, Drew and I kind of chat back and forth text during the game.
Lots of sarcasm too.
Lots, and it's high comedy. We should publish what we write. Anyways, even with Justin Jefferson out, the Bears, if you look back at our preview show, the Bears, I think, were darn near last in every major statistical category defensively entering this game. Even without Justin Jefferson, the Vikings should have beaten this Bears team. They should have had 19 points minimum in the first half and another 14 or 15 in the second half. And the fact that it's 19-13 with 2 minutes to go and the Bears driving just tells me that there is so much fundamentally wrong with this team right now that I don't think if you want to tell me in 2 or 3 weeks that the Vikings should fire sale everybody and maybe kind of look at starting over from the ground up from a personnel perspective, I wouldn't be against it. I'd at least listen to your argument at this point right now.
Well, I mean, and part of this, I mean, and we want to talk about the personnel thing. It came out, I believe it was either last night or sometime this morning. Adam Schefter from ESPN said that Kirk Cousins is apparently not going to be willing to waive any no trade clause he might have, which is absolutely not surprising to anybody that's actually been paying attention or anything. But I'm sure the Cousins trade speculation will just continue regardless. But we'll have to see what happens. I mean, next week they get to host the 49ers on Monday Night Football. I got a feeling that one's going to get real ugly real fast. And beyond that, then you're about a week or so away from the trading deadline, and you got to evaluate what you want to do with this team going forward. I mean, if you're not going to be able to deal Cousins, you're looking at guys like Danielle Hunter. I think someone said Harrison Smith's name has been tossed around. But yeah, I don't know what you're going to do with this team at this point.
Nick Howard says Hunter would be the only one to get any substantial return on. I agree with that. Drew and I talked about this in our past show. There's not much you could do with this team at this point this year. I mean, it kind of is what it is. The cake is baked, whatever phrase it is you want to use. But Drew, you said it earlier, the defense is carrying this team, and nobody, I think, really saw that coming after what we saw from the offense last year and the defense last year. Brian Flores did exactly what he should do, is to be aggressive and try and scheme your weaknesses and minimize them to the best of your ability. And today against the Bears, especially after Justin Fields went out, he stayed aggressive. He caused that aggressiveness, forced that turnover that was the Jordan Hicks scoop and score. Jordan Hicks, by the way, who had a great game, and yet the Vikings still had a problem defending the run, and the offense was just a complete mess the entire game, which is mystifying when you have a quarterback that's as good as Kirk Cousins. And even without Justin Jefferson, you got KJ Osborne, you got Jordan Addison who had a touchdown, you got TJ Hawkinson, or should we call him TJ Droppinson? I don't know. Somebody talked me off the ledge with this offense, Chris.
I can't, dude. Seriously. I mean, it's just I'm tired of watching TJ Hawkinson drop passes. I mean, there was one on I think it was like after a sack or a loss of yardage or something, where Kirk threw an absolute dart and hit Hawkinson right in the hands, and it wound up falling to the turf. And
second 17 would have been a first down if you hold on to it.
Would have been a first down.
Yep.
I mean, I can understand the occasional drop, but this year Hawkinson has just been every damn week with just awful drops. And we like Jordan Addison a lot, obviously, but I mean this was his 6th NFL game. I don't know how much you can really. I mean, you're not going to expect him to step up and take Justin Jefferson's place, obviously, but he had a decent game. He found the end zone. I mean, with the way the offense looked today, all things considered, I thought he was all right. But this offense is just going to be rough until Justin Jefferson comes back, because Jefferson is one of those guys that teams have to do different things on defense than they would normally do when he's out there. And without Jefferson's presence, I mean, they can do a lot more straight up things. They can worry more about getting pressure and less about getting beat. And yeah, we're in for a rough next few weeks offensively, I think.
Drew, I want to ask you a question, but first I want to tell everybody we've got over 140 people in our room. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. As always, we're going to give a prize away. And what we're going to do, Jordan Hicks, if you could somehow find this show, we're going to give you a prize. Jordan Hicks, if you can find us, hit up Ruby at Vikings Report with Drew and Ted at gmail.com, and we're going to give you a prize for what you did today. She'll give you a link to the Vikings Report with Drew and Ted prize vault. You can pick something nice out, maybe give it to your kids if you have any, your wife if you have one. I'm not sure about your personal life. I really don't follow you all that much. I try not to do that with any players. Either way, Drew, I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
And we're going to give away another prize anyways, but not just to Jordan Hicks, but we're going to give away a couple prizes as we go along. Anyways,
okay.
Drew, I want to ask you a serious question. Why is Alexander Mattison getting significant playing time over Cam Akers at this point?
Madison you should sit him down, start Akers next week. I don't know. Madison's not an NFL running back one. He's not. He's a backup running back. So that leaves it wide open to. There was a run in this game in Akers. You could probably find it because Akers had very few runs. He got the handoff. He picked the right hole at the defensive line. Then he juked the linebacker. Then he cut back. He made 3. And I said to Ruby, that's the difference. He's got vision. Madison runs full bore into the middle of the line. He doesn't look for his blocking or anything. Just full bore, whatever I can get, I can get. I would not start him next week. I mean, sure, you can play him, but I would. I mean, at this point in the season, why are you playing Madison as your running back one?
Well, Jay Johnson says Madison has nude pics of the Wilfs, which I think, you know what? It's a scenario we need to explore at this point. But seriously, there
not
was a play
explosive at all. Not explosive at all.
And Chris, there was a play we talked about that I know exactly what play you're talking about. Akers broke a tackle in the backfield, went to the left, juked right, and got 8 or 9 yards, whatever it was. There was another play that was, and that sort of epitomizes Akers from what I've seen since he's been with the Vikings. There was also a play in the first quarter that sort of epitomizes Madison this year when he doesn't drop a pass or fumble the ball. It was first quarter, early second quarter. The Vikings were going from right to left on your radio dial / television screen. Madison got the ball. There was a big hole on the left side of the line. He got through it, and it looked like the whole field opened up. And if he had kept running, he would have scored or gotten a huge gain. And he was like tripped up and arm tackled for maybe 3 or 4 yards. And I was thinking to myself, Akers is already past that point where the arm tackle happens and is down the field for huge yardage. It just seems to me, Chris, that Akers not playing over Madison at this point is a question I would like answered.
Well, as Raymond Hoagland just pointed out in the comments, that carry for Akers should be relatively easy to find because it was the only one he got all game.
God.
You remember that play, Chris?
One carry for 8 yards and 1 catch for 7 yards.
But that one carry,
I don't get it.
That one carry, Chris, proved that the way the play unfolded, it proved that the vision of Akers is a lot better than Madison. That play proved it.
Oh no, I know. I agree. I mean, that there should be a more equitable split at the very least between these two. I mean, Alexander Madison got 18 carries today. Cam Akers got 1. No comprendo.
What was Madison's yardage on the ground? What did he get running? 18 carries for how many yards today?
44.
Dude, we got totally outgained on the yard. They got like 160 yards or something.
Yeah,
let me add up the Bears rushing.
Yeah, the last graphic I saw, they had over 150 yards right towards the end of the game, and the Vikings were terrible running the ball again. Drew, while Chris is looking that up, Drew, you mentioned this earlier about the play calling.
I want to talk about that,
and I want to ask this, and I want to hear your opinion, but I want to ask this question and lead into it. Is it the play calling, or is it that Kevin O'Connell at times is calling aggressive plays downfield to get chunk yardage, and Kirk Cousins, for whatever reason, is checking down and not taking those shots?
I think it's a little of both, Ted, but if O'Connell, if it was all Kirk checking down, O'Connell would have stopped it weeks ago. I think it's a little mixture of both. I mean, I know Kirk likes to check down, but his offense, here's the problem with the offense. You remember a guy, Marv Levy?
I do, yeah.
Remember Sam Weish?
I do, yeah.
Both these guys, I listen to seminars that they put on. Both these guys used to talk about when you get 7 or 8 yards on first down running the ball, that is your open down. That is your game carnival down. That's the one you play with because the defense is caught with their pants down, so to speak. And every time the Vikings get 6 or 7 yards on the ground, I charted it today, they run it again and get nothing or lose the yardage. They passed it one time after a 7-yard game and got a first down to Osborne. Novel. That's the problem with the play calling. It's way too predictable. And every time we got 7 yards, we gave 5 of them back on the next play. And I don't understand why. It's just not aggressive looking. It looks scared. It looks, but I don't know if Kirk can't be checking down that much. I don't know. It seemed like O'Connell would have been pissed at him by now because he's checking down a lot, guys. Every we run in the middle and we check it down. There's our offense.
Karen checks down more than Kirk checks down more than a Karen leaving a Yelp review at Starbucks. Chris, I'll post it. You know what, Mark Larson? By God, that just won a prize. Get a hold of Ruby at Vikings Report with drewandted@gmail.com.
Let me end it and I'll send it back to you guys. I like Kirk Cousins. I think he's a good quarterback, but he's so limited that I'm done with him. If you're going to have this bad of a team, you might as well have a rookie in there you might as well just do that. I mean, he's a good quarterback, but he's so limited. If he doesn't have the right time you got to be able to make plays. And I don't hate Kirk. You know me, Ted. I've kind of grown to like him over the years.
We both have.
But he's so limited. You don't get much with him.
Chris, I'm going to ask that question to you. Is it Kirk not being aggressive when Kevin O'Connell calls what would be an aggressive play downfield, or is it Kevin O'Connell's play calling at this point?
I think it's got to be more play calling at this point. By the way, 36 carries for 162 yards for the Bears. They had more yards on the ground than they had through the air in this one, which you just about expect. But yeah, we've seen Kirk be aggressive when he's had the ability to be aggressive. I don't know how much of this you can put on Kirk. I mean, obviously, we're not looking at the all-22 film or anything like that. We don't know who's open downfield and who's not getting open and that kind of thing. But, yeah, it's going to be I don't know what else you can do with the offense at this point. I mean, like I said, Justin Jefferson adds a whole new dimension to this offense that they just don't have and they're not going to have for the next few weeks. So I don't know if they can scheme up anything that can try to limit that, or if this is just what we're going to be stuck with for the next few weeks. But I know we've seen Kirk Cousins be aggressive before, and I don't know if Kevin O'Connell's play calling is a little scared because of the absence of Justin Jefferson, or what the issue is here at this point.
Chris Young says, I'm tired of drop calls and uninspired play calling. Let's see. T. Kubler says that was with the Bears having 3 running backs out with injury. That's a very good point. Drew talked about that up in the preview show.
No Herbert.
No, and Ruby even brings up Justin Fields went out hurt. She's talking about her fantasy team, but her fantasy picks for this week. But yeah, Justin Fields went out hurt, and you kind of thought that was going to be when the Vikings would just end it. I mean, end the competitive phase of this game, and they didn't. And we talked about play calling and is it Kirk? Is it Kevin O'Connell? So the Vikings, the Vikings scored right before halftime, took a lead, and we thought, well, we're getting the ball to open the second half, and what do? They go 3 and out. Okay, awesome. That's just been kind of the Viking season this far. But then the Bears got the ball, and they had to punt, and they pinned the Vikings inside the 5. And Drew and I were going back and forth, and I said, let me predict every single play that's going to happen in this play call sequence. And I did. They ran the ball with Madison, and the second down would be second and 7 or greater. Then they threw a check down. I called screen, but it was going to be to a running back, and it was going to be dropped or incomplete or minimal gain, which it was. And then third down, I said they're going to throw to Hawkinson short of the sticks. They're going to have to punt. And that's exactly what happened. And this is what pissed me off about the end of the Mike Zimmer era, that Drew, Chris, and I can sit here and pretty much figure out what the Vikings are going to call on every single play, and it's irritating. And Kevin O'Connell's supposed to be this genius play calling guy. They're supposed to have this dynamic offense, Chris, and they don't. And I'm befuddled as to why. And you can't give me Justin Jefferson is hurt because Jordan Addison's a first-round pick. He's good. TJ Hawkinson, they traded for him. He's good. I don't know, man. I don't know.
I don't understand it. I mean, even the offensive line has been better over the course of this year. I mean, I don't know how much stock you put in Pro Football Focus grades or anything else, but the offensive line has been better than they have been in past years, and it just hasn't translated into success so far. It's just been I don't know, and I don't know how to fix it. I mean, at this point, it's not like there's a bunch of dudes out there in free agency waiting to come in and help or anything like that.
No,
so
there isn't.
It kind of is what it is at this point, and you just gotta try to do your best to work around it.
Drew, Chris, Todd Taylor makes a great comment here. That series right before the half, they were aggressive, drove right down the field and scored. Might be the best 2-minute drive they've had maybe in the whole Kevin O'Connell era to this point. And then they stopped being aggressive. What the hell? And we ask ourselves that question every week, Drew.
It's so fleeting of when they have drives like that you remember it in your head. Why can't you have more drives like that? But they don't have any killer instinct at all. We're just going to have to get used to one-score games. Let me tell you, if Justin Jefferson played in this game, you know what the final score would have been?
Same.
19-13. Because it's the Vikings. So I don't want to hear anything about, we score 40 if JJ's in there. The play calling is horrible, and that's not going to change because he's the head coach. I don't know. And like you had even mentioned, Ted, maybe he's trying to prove to everybody running it up the middle and checking it down is how you run an offense. Maybe you're right. Maybe he doesn't want to. Does anybody at the press conference, anybody in the media say, dude, what's up with your play calling? Does anybody ever question him? Is it just me?
I don't know if anybody does, honestly.
It's sometimes worse than some of the shit teams in the Big Ten. I'm telling you.
Hey, Chris, so what Drew was alluding to was I said, we were complaining about the play calling. And I said, look, is it Kevin O'Connell just kind of being stubborn like Mike Zimmer was? And I'm going to make sure or I want to prove that my way of calling a game works with the runs on first down and second down, the screen passes that hardly ever work, the check downs on third down, and whether that's Kirk not getting aggressive or whatever. It just feels like Kevin O'Connell is being aggressive and stubborn in his play calling until he proves what he calls will work. I don't know.
But the thing about it is, I mean, when he came from the Rams system, he came from the Sean McVay system. Sean McVay doesn't do that crap. I mean, Sean McVay is aggressive on offense. I mean, he's up 30 points and he's throwing the ball 50 yards down the field for crap.
Yes.
This is not. I don't know where he's getting this from, to be honest. I mean, it from his history and the system he came from, you would think that the aggression would be there because the aggression has been there with the teams he's been on in the past. And I mean, it can't be that he had significantly better personnel in Los Angeles than he had in Minnesota, I don't think, because I mean, there is no Justin Jefferson in Los Angeles. I mean, there wasn't even a Adam Thielen or a Stephon Diggs in Los Angeles, I don't think. But
Darren Campbell.
I don't know where he's gotten that this thing to be conservative and stubborn, like Drew said all the time. I mean, just you have the personnel, fit your offense to your personnel. I mean, we talk about Mike Zimmer, and Mike Zimmer wanted to play his system regardless of who he had out there. But the Kevin O'Connell we thought was going to be different, and maybe to this point he's not. I don't know.
Yeah, I just and somebody was complaining about that being the worst intentional grounding call they've ever seen. It was a bad intentional grounding call. I'm not denying that.
Play wasn't going to work anyway. Come on.
But and you're right, it wasn't going to work. But if you're complaining about an intentional grounding call that could potentially lose you this game, when you are up 19-6 and the opponent has to play an undrafted rookie free agent quarterback, I'm sorry, that's not the reason the Vikings would have lost the game. It just isn't. There are so many things fundamentally flawed about this team right now. And before you go any further, look, we got almost 200 people in the chat room. Again, if you want to be eligible to win a prize, thank you so much for joining us. Just make a comment in the chat room. Ruby's tracking names. We're going to roll. We're going to spin the wheel, the Toots' Wheel of Destiny at the end, and we're going to give away a prize. Drew, go ahead. You were going to say something.
I wanted to mention Darren Campbell's comment down there. He's more like Zimmer than McVay. And
Yes.
that's a very good comment by Darren Campbell. Hello, Darren. How's Canada treating you? Good to have you on here today. And DC's a good guy. Hello, Soup. But can you guys say that this play calling you've seen this year, is it better than Clint Kubiak's play calling?
No, not this year.
No.
I thought last year, more often than not, it was. I thought the Vikings were a lot more aggressive last year. There were times and there were spurts when they were frustrating as hell, and we talked about that, and we talked about being consistent, and I kind of thought KOC would learn and become more aggressive, but no, it's regressed, if anything, in my opinion.
And that says something if Kubiak's outdoing you. You know, when it's 2nd and 3, Ted, why not go play action and try to hit the tight end of the seam? Why not go play action and try to hit a square out that gets you 13 yards? That's the best time to pass, not run it again.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't get it. They don't even try things like that. It's the offense is way behind the talent they got. They should. I mean, how do you not score 30 today against Eberflus and Baguette? What's his name? Baguettes?
Bagent or something.
Take it, Eberflus, and wipe my Bagent. Shouldn't be 19-13. The offense, I don't know. I sound like a broken record, but I don't want to sound like ESAT. I like the win, but honestly, come on, man.
I kind of wish Badgett's last name would have been Fornes, so we could have called him Tyler at the Real Forno. And we could have said the Vikings beat the Real Forno.
Where is Fat Hawkinson? Is he in here today?
Our good friend Tyler Fornes. You can find him on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it now at the Real Forno. Good.
Where's Dave Stefano? I want his 2 cents.
Yeah, I do too. So look, the Vikings are 2-4. So Chris, Drew and I talked about this on our show. Where do you see this team? So they got San Francisco at home, then they're at Green Bay, and then they've got the trade deadline, I believe, if I remember correctly.
I believe so, yeah.
What do you see? So at 2-4, where do you see the Vikings after these next 2 games, and what do you see them doing at the trade deadline? Because the trade deadline comes before the Atlanta game.
Well, I mean, they're not beating the Niners. There's no shot that they beat that team. So they're going to be 2-5. Then you got to go into Green Bay, and God knows which Packer team is going to show up for that one.
49ers are going to lose.
Oh, God, now they're going to be angry.
To the Cleveland Browns. They just they were going for a field goal with under 10 seconds left, and the kicker missed it wide right. So the Browns are going to beat the 49ers 19-17. So I believe the last undefeated team falls, and they're going to be pissed off on Monday night coming into Minneapolis. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool story.
I think the Eagles are still undefeated.
Oh, my bad. You're right.
Yeah, the Eagles are. But yeah, so they're going to be pissed off. So there's even less of a chance that the Vikings are going to win that one. So let's just put them down to 2-5, 3-5 at best after the Green Bay game. I mean, it's just going to be. I don't know what you do at this point. I mean, I don't think you're making a run in the second half of the season or anything like that. So I mean, you have to start exploring the possibility, even if Cousins isn't going to agree to be traded or whatever. There are other guys you're going to have to look at and see what you can get for him going forward, because the competitive portion of the season is basically going to be over after Monday night.
At 2-5, I kind of think so, Drew. Do you think they could still come back and get into the thick of this thing at 2-5 if they lose like we all assume they will to the 49ers?
Ted.
I thought my screen froze for a second. I was just getting ready to go, oh my God.
Hans, Booby.
Let
me give you John McClane on a platter. Listen. First off, hats off to Flores, what the job he's done this year. That was almost the second game when we did not give up a touchdown.
Yeah.
The defense is playing better. And I know you guys called me crazy a couple weeks ago. I said by the end of the season, they're going to be a top 7-8 defense in the league. They're getting their grip, and they're going to be they're doing it. They're moving. They're progressing. Can we get O'Connell out of there, make Flores a head coach, and have him hire an offensive coordinator that knows how to play call?
No, that's not going to happen. Come on.
Okay. Well then, I don't know. I don't know what you do at 2-5, but if you're going to continue with this really vanilla offense, Ted, how many teams are you going to beat, Ted, with this offense? How many teams are you going to beat play calling like this? The Bears and Carolina. Maybe we play them every other week.
Well, I mean, against the playoffs.
You tell me how many games are going to. What do you do at 2-5? It's a good question. What do you do?
I don't know. Chris, would you consider, if you're Kevin O'Connell? I mean, because you wouldn't, because if you're Kevin O'Connell, you think I'll figure it out and I'll get it right. Mm-hmm. But as an outside observer, I would think maybe let the offensive coordinator maybe call a game and see how he does. I don't know. I just it's frustrating that an offense that seems good on paper is struggling this bad after 6 games.
No, and I would like to see Wes Phillips get an opportunity to call plays and run the offense or whatever. But like you said, Kevin O'Connell's not going to let that happen. So we're going to hope that Kevin O'Connell does figure out what needs to be done and works it out on his own. And, if he doesn't, then we're just going to continue to see the sort of offense we've seen for the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season here.
Well, Chris, why doesn't it change? Why don't we see an adjustment by the offense? Why? Why is it the same thing every week if it's not good? Why continue with not good? I don't get it.
That's a really good question, man. I don't have an answer for you, honestly. I mean, you would think that, all the best coaches have the ability to adjust and make those adjustments, whether it's in the course of a game or in the course of a season or whatever. And we haven't seen that so far, and I don't understand why.
So here's something. Take it for what it's worth. I don't know. I want to talk about Kirk Cousins for just a second, because the first thing that people seem to forget about Kirk this year is that he has a no trade clause in his contract, and unless he really wanted to, he wasn't going to be traded anywhere. And there's been reports coming out that if you paid attention for more than 2 seconds, that he wasn't going anywhere this year. But let me ask you this: after 6 games, if you're a team like, let's say, Detroit or San Francisco or the Eagles, or a team that's really looking good right now, and their guy, and I hope it doesn't happen, gets hurt, and they need a quarterback for the rest of the season, would anybody even want to trade for Kirk Cousins right now? Because when you look at what he did today, I mean, he had that WTF moment when it looked like he was getting sacked, and then he pitched the ball back to, I think it was Madison. It was Akers. And it was a backwards pass. It was a fumble. Akers tried to knock it out of bounds, and the Bears recovered it. And I thought that it got overturned. I thought it looked like a fumble recovery, but that's just me. I mean, Kirk is doing weird stuff at 35 years old as a veteran quarterback that you would not expect a guy with that much experience in the NFL to be doing, Drew.
I think he misses Dalvin Cook.
Okay.
His chunk yardage he used to get, Cook used to put him in good situations. I know Cook's not any good now, but last year and the years previous, Dalvin Cook would put Cousins in a very confident situation. A lot of 2nd and 1s, he'd run for 13 yards to give you another first down. I think he misses that running game. There's something different about his body language this year. Kirk Cousins doesn't look like you know what I'm saying? There's something very different about it. Last year, he was like dancing on the plane and all this. This year, he does not look like he's having a good time, and he does not look like he wants to take the brunt of the responsibility. You guys, am I wrong? His body language looks completely different this year.
It looks very 2018-ish, Chris. You remember at the end of that first year, it was against the Bears at home, I think. Mm-hmm. Last game of the year, that all the Vikings needed to do was win, and they get to the playoffs, and they lost. They looked horrible, kind of like they do now. And if you remember infamously, Adam Thielen and Kirk were just yipping at each other on the sidelines. It kind of has that vibe right now. The team overall kind of has that vibe right now. They're not doing it overtly on the sideline like they were, Chris, but something's off. Something is off this year. I think Drew's onto something here.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, I don't know whether it's because, the Vikings didn't give Kirk Cousins that extension that he was hoping for, because before that, it seemed like he wanted to stay in Minnesota for the long term. And I guess the front office has basically said, no, this is going to be it. After next season, we're moving in another direction, and that's why there hasn't been an extension or anything, and that's affected his attitude or whatever the case may be. But yeah, like Drew said last year, we had Kirk Chains on the plane back from wherever the hell it was, if that was after the Buffalo game or whatever the heck it was. And, dude's just having a good time. And, nobody's having a good time this year. Even when we win, we're not having a good time. I mean, this is terrible. So
it's like chewing glass.
It does have a 2018 sort of vibe to it. Yeah.
All right. So I don't know how I pronounce this name, but SN Mister. Okay. He said if these yahoos are going to emulate a 70s offense, they should roll back ticket prices to the 70s as well. My friend, that wins a prize. Get a hold of Ruby at Vikings Report, Drew at gmail.com.
Yes.
And she'll give you a link to the Vikings Report prize vault. You'll get a prize. Congratulations, SN Mister. Whatever.
That Oklahoma Sooners and the Wishbone would be happy with this offense, wouldn't they?
One quick little tidbit here that I just saw. Apparently, Marcus Davenport left the locker room with his foot in a walking boot. That's never a positive sign. So I'm guessing, we're not going to see him for a while again either. So that's another tough loss for Mint. Dude's been a difference maker when he's been out there, but he hasn't been out there most of the time. So I don't know.
Yeah. Doesn't the Cousins thing, you guys? Doesn't it feel like it's winding down? That it's over? It kind of feels like that.
It does. Yeah, that's a really good. Yeah, that's a really good way to put it, Drew. I'm sorry. Go ahead and go.
No, I'm not going to cash this team in until I see the performance against the 49ers. And I'm not talking the final score. I'm talking to see how intense they are, how fiery they are, what kind of game they bring, what kind of game plan they bring. If the Vikings happen to figure out a way, if the Browns can beat them, there's got to be some kind of way. But you can tell a lot with your team if they're cashing it in. We've seen that before in the past, but I'm going to wait till that to really give them the last judgment. But it feels like the Cousins thing to me is winding down. That's over.
The one thing that is so different this year between last year is that last year when the Vikings played a stinker of a game, and the Dallas game first comes to mind, they always rebounded and said, look, we can put that behind us and play good football. And they did. And this year, it just, I don't know if it's, I don't want to say hangover, but I think winding down is a really great way to put it, Drew. I think Kirk maybe in the back of his mind knows, you know what, I'm not coming back here. So what? I would think if he thought that his time in Minnesota was coming to an end, he'd want to put on as much of a show as he could, because Kirk has always been able to corner the market at the perfect time and cash in on free agency. And it just feels like if he wants one more big contract, that he would be running up some numbers, whether it was going to be an extension with the Vikings or with another team. But yeah, there's something behind the scenes that's not like it was last year at all.
I like G-Mac's comment. This has a lot of feel of Namath to the Rams. Remember when Joe Namath went to the Rams? It was kind of almost over, Yeah. I don't know if exactly like that, but, shout out to G-Mac. That guy is supportive of the show, and he has some funny comments. I love that dude.
Closer to home, it might. I know we all remember the second Brett Favre season in Minnesota.
Yes,
compared to the first one. I mean, I know 2010 had like some of the weirdest shit that ever happened ever. Like the roof of the building collapsing and whatever the hell else happened. But yeah, this kind of feels like the first year with Favre was awesome, and then there's the NFC Championship game and whatever, and we weren't sure if he was coming back, and then 2010 happened and everything just went to crap for the entire season. And this does kind of feel like that at this point, unfortunately. And we're probably going to end up a lot the same way.
Drew, I think that's a great comparison, actually.
Oh, that's absolutely perfect. I can't better that. It does feel exactly like that. You know what? Last year was full of like these great wins at the end of game, magic, and we were, even though I think all of us thought they're getting lucky on some of these games, we all denied it because we were enjoying the season. This year, it's just everything is exposed, and it's, man, I don't see how you go forward with the same thing next year, especially from a quarterback situation. I don't hate Kirk. I don't think it's all his problem, but I think you need to re-energize the team, Ted. You need to get something going that says you have a going to the future. It feels like the pedals have fallen off the bike. I mean, we've already seen what we can get with Cousins. Let's move on.
Yeah, look, if you're going to be 2-4 and struggle to beat look, let's face it, they're a bad football team, the Chicago Bears, and they're
shit. They're
and,
shit.
And after the Niners, you can argue the Packers aren't good. They've got the Falcons at home after that. I don't think the Falcons are very good. They play a string of bad to mediocre football teams after the 49ers. And I would think if you are going to struggle and play down to the level of your competition or whatever the phrases you want to use, you would at this point in his career, Kirk is who he is. And you're not going to build a team around him for the next 5 or 6 years. You're just not. He's 35, and you're not going to give him a 3 or 4 year extension. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah has already said pretty much, or reported, it's been reported that the Vikings won't. So if that's the case, if you're going to struggle at 2-4 like this, I'd rather struggle with a young quarterback that is learning the game, and you can say, well, he made a boneheaded play like that backwards pass flip, whatever the hell it was, to Cam Akers. But then he turns right around and throws some lasers to Jordan Addison or to KJ Osborne or to Justin Jefferson or even TJ Hawkinson. And you think, well, at least there's something to work on there. I would rather be able to look at this team positively going forward in the future than going, man, they're just kind of spinning their wheels right now. Because the thing that bugged me about the last days of Zimmer and Spielman was that I just felt the Vikings were spinning their wheels and they weren't getting any closer to a Super Bowl. And I kind of feel like that about this team this year right now.
Very well said.
No, that pretty well sums it up, I think.
I wish that the great Bill Walsh was still around so he could call O'Connell and say, listen, you got the personnel. You got the personnel to run a really good offense. Stop overthinking it. Let your foot or let your foot off the gas, one of the two. Don't be so anal about this vanilla play. Let it go a little bit. And if the Vikings can turn it around, guys. I mean, 2-4, if they would change the play calling, I think it would help them immensely. But they every game seems like the same game plan, Chris, offensively. They don't. And if Kevin O'Connell doesn't change that, it's not going to get better. That's the only thing that's going to change. Nobody's walking through the door. Change your play calling. Get JJ back and still think about this season making a run, Ted.
Yeah. Well, here's a question. Speaking about building to the future, our Emmer33 asked a really good question. Chris, I'll let you answer first, then Drew will go to you. Is JJ waiting to sign a contract to see what the Vikings do at quarterback? Because that is kind of the speculation about what Justin Jefferson is willing to do regarding his future with the Vikings.
I mean, it's entirely possible, but the Vikings, if you are done with Kirk Cousins after this year, you've basically locked yourself into taking a quarterback early in the 2024 draft. And we've talked about that this quarterback class is supposed to be pretty outstanding from top to bottom. You're looking at guys like, obviously Caleb Williams is the one everyone talks about, Drake May, Shedeur Sanders, if he comes out, JJ McCarthy, and so on down the line here. And I wrote something about this at DN last week after the loss to Kansas City and whatnot. I think we're to the point where you need to get Justin Jefferson intimately involved in the process of finding the next quarterback of this football team. And if there's I don't know what that means, if it means you sitting down with him and asking him or sitting down watching the film with him, doing whatever it is, but Justin Jefferson is the face of the franchise. You don't want to let that guy walk away. And if he's waiting to see what you do at quarterback, then do what is going to, get him involved so that, you don't have to worry about him going, well, I don't want to play with this dude to trade me to somewhere else or something like that. So I hope that the Vikings get him involved in the process of finding the next quarterback of this football team. But if this is the last season of the Kirk Cousins era, you've pretty much committed yourself to drafting someone early, and you could just as well make the dude that's your entire franchise is centered around at this point happy with it.
Drew?
Oh, man, it's such a tough call. It's such a tough call because you want if you sat Jefferson down and said, who do you want to be quarterback of this team next year? And he says Kirk Cousins just because his numbers are up and he knows Kirk. I mean, weighing in is one thing. Letting them make the final decision is another. What if KOC and Kwesi think we got to move on from Kirk and JJ wants him?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a tough call. What do you do? Because JJ is, generational talent. I mean, what do you do? But I don't know. I don't know how you find a common, how you agree on that. But certainly, if Justin Jefferson says you send Kirk along the way, who the hell's the quarterback going to be? Why would I want to play here with some rook dog who's going to throw it to me 3 times and look like Kyle Wilson? He doesn't want to play in that. So that's a great question. It's really a great. You let him make the call, and I don't know Ted. What do you do
if you're intent on letting Kirk go? And I'm not sure what the Vikings are going to do. I would say, hey, look, we are moving on from Kirk, but we are going to build this team around the offense, and you are the offense right now. So we want you to, be on board with our decision to get a new quarterback, but you are going to be intimately involved in who we decide we want to get at quarterback. And I would say, look, there's what, Chris, you rattled off 5 or 6 names. And all I'm going to say about Caleb Williams, is last night he looked perfect for the Vikings offense. Throwing interceptions, throwing short of the first down marker on third down, throwing screen passes that don't work. And one more thing, Kyle McCord went into South Bend, 4th start ever.
I knew it was coming.
That's all I'm saying. All right, Drew, you were going to say something. Go ahead, buddy.
No, and you're across the table, JJ, and you're looking at this guy saying exactly what you said. Okay, we're going to move on from Kirk Cousins. If your play calling sucks with Kirk Cousins, how's it going to be with Drake May from North Carolina? It's going to suck even more. That's what JJ would say. It's going to suck even more. The problem is you, O'Connell. It's not Kirk Cousins or getting a new quarterback. The problem's you. If you don't change the play calling, whoever you bring in, it's not going to matter.
Well, that's a fair point.
I don't want to be part of a rebuild. I want to win a fucking Super Bowl. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, I get you.
JJ's going to bring all that to the forefront. And here's a question I have for both you and Chris. All we've heard year after year is if we fix something, Kirk can get us to the Super Bowl. If we fix the offensive line, if we get him more weapons, if we increase the play calling, whatever, can he win you a Super Bowl? Because when you sit down at the big oak table and you all have hors d'oeuvres laying around and Justin Jefferson's coming in, can you honestly tell him Kirk Cousins can win a Super Bowl? Because after 6 years, they tried to give him everything they could. But is he a Super Bowl winning quarterback to you? Can Kirk Cousins win the Super Bowl? I'll ask both of you that question.
Cresco.
I think you can win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins. I don't think you can win a Super Bowl because of Kirk Cousins.
Great. Well,
and that's why you take a risk on one of these quarterbacks, because you might get the guy that can take you there in spite of some of your other shortcomings. But Kirk is a guy where if everything is set up and everything is going well, you can win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins. But he's not going to be able to overcome enough of the deficiencies where you are going to win a Super Bowl because of him.
So well said, man. Chris Gates is the smartest guy on the show. Sorry, Ted.
No, he is, and I will say, I will say this, and then we'll wrap things up. To answer your question, Drew, in 2018, the Minnesota Vikings brought Kirk Cousins in because he was the missing piece. That's how they advertise him. The Vikings had gone to the NFC Championship. They had the number 1 defense in the NFL. They had Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs in their prime, and they had a decent running game, even though Dalvin Cook was a rookie in 17, blew out his knee, came back in 2018. They had all the pieces set up, and they went 8-7-1. And for those of you that want to say the defense wasn't the same, it was still top 10 in both points and yards allowed. It was still a defense that could have won you a championship. For those of you that want to say it's DeFilippo's fault, the Vikings went very pass heavy because they brought Kirk Cousins in because he was a good passer, and they could not get it done. I agree with Chris. I think he can win you a Super Bowl, but he will not win it. You will not win a Super Bowl because of him. And if that is your belief, then I can see why the Vikings would want to move on. Also, besides, he's 35, and if you're going to sign guys like Darisaw and JJ, we've said this before. If you're going to sign guys like Darisaw and JJ, and maybe Jordan Addison down the line, maybe Camp Bynum, whoever it is you think needs an extension to be the next part of your core group of guys that Spielman had with Rudolph and AP and all those guys back in the day, then you cannot afford Kirk Cousins and keep all those guys. You just can't. So, anyways. All right.
You're smart too, Smitty. I don't want to leave you out of it.
No, you're the smartest musketeer of them all. All right. Ruby, you there? Are we ready to spin the wheel?
Jay Johnson said earlier something about me being old, so it probably affects my sex. I want to tell you something, man. I am 18.
That's Vikings Report After Dark. People gotta pay extra for that.
All right, my favorite part of the show, the wheel. Look at all those names, Ted.
That's a lot of names. Ruby, you there?
No,
she's not. Okay.
Hi, Toonses.
She was there.
I saw her little icon at the very top of the screen.
He can win you a Super Bowl, but he's not going to be the reason you win. That's so well said, Chris Gates. We're going to put that in the next show.
Yeah, that's very good.
It's perfect.
All right, Ruby. If you guys going to go ahead and spin the wheel. And the winner is Skull Troll. All right. Congratulations, Skull Troll. Get a hold of Ruby at Vikings Report with Drew and Ted at gmail.com. Vikings moved to 2-4.
Ted, who was the other winner? I got to write it down. If you remember.
Something senior. I have to go back and look at the.
Okay. Don't worry.
I'll have to go back and look. Anyway, so we've got Vikings win, moved to 2-4 with a 19-13 win in Soldier Field against the Bears. A couple significant storylines that came out of that for the Vikes. One, they won. That was good. For the Bears, Justin Fields got hurt. For the Vikings, Marcus Davenport got hurt. So we'll keep an eye on those as we move forward. Last thoughts on today, Drewster.
Well, I'll take the win. I mean, this team has been dying for a win. I mean, I was thinking that the Bears are going to drive down and score. This show's going to be about how the season's over. But we said on our preview show on Friday, Ted, that every game is a playoff game.
Yeah.
And I am looking forward to the 49er game because I think just Viking-wise, they're going to throw a twist in it. They win the game and everybody's going, where's this team been all year? You know, Ted, that can happen.
Yeah.
Because football is a wicked, wicked mistress. It is.
If they beat the 49ers, I'm going to be all Super Bowl, homeboy, let's go.
But it wouldn't be shocking though because it's football. I think the Vikings they're not a good team. I think it's all rooted down to one reason, and you got to keep playing the games. We got to keep rooting for our team. But I am fired up to see what they could do against the 49ers because I think it might surprise some people. But it's the Viking season, man. Let's go.
Let's enjoy it. Chris, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've said that there's no shot that they beat the Niners next week, but you know, weird things happen in the NFL all the time, and you know the Niners are coming off a loss to the Browns and whatever warm body they had out there at quarterback today because Deshaun Watson was hurt. So
why didn't he get a massage for that rotator cuff?
But yeah, so. With that, yeah, we're gonna have to see what happens. I mean, maybe this team can pull something out of their butts and save their season, but I don't know. I think it's time to go home.
Yeah, we couldn't find a woman brave enough, Ted.
We're getting borderline. We're getting borderline R-rated here, folks. Thanks for joining us. Thanks if you liked what you saw, like, subscribe. Tune in next week. Drew and I'll be back on Friday for our 49ers preview. Go ahead, real quick, Drew.
So the Niners lost to the Browns, who had a backup quarterback in there.
Yes, they did.
I'm just saying.
Weirder things have happened. Every Sunday is a unique experience in the National Football League. On it, you know, it's what they say about any given Sunday is true. Any given Sunday, one team can beat another. All right.
Thank you for joining us. Thank everybody.
Thanks for joining us, Ruby. Thanks so much for monitoring the chat and running the wheel. For Chris, for For Drew, for Ruby, I'm Ted. We will see you next week. Skol Vikings.
That was fun, guys. Yeesh. That was fun.
Yeah, it was.
Good info. Good info. Had some laughs.
I think we're still live here, boys.
Yeah, I think we are. I'm waiting.
Oh, we're still live? Hello, everybody. Go ahead, Ted. Hey, everybody.
Ruby, you can cut. Ruby, cut.
I'm still 18 from the waist down.
Yeah.